Here's a short recap of part 2 of the Pong miniseries. First, we created a blueprint actor called BP_ball. We then added 2 components. One was a static mesh cube that we renamed to ball, and the other one was the projectile movement script. The movement script we have set an initial speed of 1,000 units. We have set the gravity to be 0. We have enabled bounce, and we set the bounciness factor to 1 with a friction of 0. Then in the cube static mesh, we added the emissive material that we made in the last video. We set the simulate physics to true, and then we set the damping for the linear and angular to 0, and then we also disabled gravity. It's also important to note that we set up some constraints on the z-axis for position, and then we lock the rotation for the x, y, and z. One last call out is under collision, we set the simulation generate hit events to be true. Then in the construction script, we grabbed the cube static mesh and we gave it a world rotation, and then on the z-axis we put it in as a random float between -130 and +130. This is so when the ball spawns, it could randomly go left or right at some angle. And then in the event graph, we created 2 custom events. The first custom event we called score. It simply spawns a sound, which in this case is the score sound, and then it destroys the ball object. So when the player scores against the other player, it'll basically call this event. And then on the hit event, we are simply playing a bounce sound, and these sounds we imported as well. After that, we had to create some bumpers for the top and bottom of the game. This is just a simple cube that is scaled up on the y-axis by 100 units. The only thing custom in here is that we have the hidden in-game set to true. So when we place these in the level, you can see them currently, but when we play the map, they will be invisible, and our projectile has something to bounce against it. And then one other thing we did is under the material for the emission, if you select the material node here, we scroll down and we added a rubber physics material so that when the ball hits something, it'll keep its momentum and continue to bounce around. And that's simply because we are simulating physics that we needed that. Then we went into the level and we created 2 trigger boxes that we scaled up on the x-axis by 100 units. What this did is it allows us to go into the level blueprint and create these 2 custom events for when the ball overlaps with them. We simply make a cast to the blueprint projectile, and then we run the score custom event that we created earlier. And then the last thing we had to do is we went into the player, we created some test code, so when we press the spacebar, it'll spawn the actual projectile. Now when we actually test this out, we have a working skeleton of the Pong game. Stay tuned for part 3.